Okay, where are we? Good morning, Mary. How are you? Feeling good? Feeling fine? Morning. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Nikki. How's everyone doing? Good, good. Good morning to you also. I'm making your coffee right now if you want to grab the milks. The camera's on, so don't come too close.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was just trying to warn you, you know. What? Yeah, I'll give you one off camera. I'm just starting your coffee to do so. Jeez.
Yeah, of course.
This is yours. You're just coming first because I heard your alarm go off. All right. How's everyone doing? Chugging along on this Tuesday. Hey, Sloan. Nikki has returned. Hey, Jillian. Good morning. Good morning, Amanda. Okay, hang in there, trying to figure out how to help little in separation. Yeah, that is a hard thing, especially at her age. You said she goes to daycare though, right, Mary? Or is that, did I misunderstand that? It is difficult, I get that though. I do understand. And how does she do at daycare? Is she okay or no? Morning, can't stay together, meetings during 4 minutes. Boo! Amanda, message me separately so we can talk about carriers and figure that out. We can figure that situation out. She's upset for like the first hour. Oh my gosh. What do they do? An hour feels like a long time. Like being upset for like the first 15 minutes feels like manageable, but hour feels long. Or am I wrong? I don't know. People whose kids are in daycare can speak better than me. Like, is that normal? It's off and on, but still. Yeah, does anyone have any insight? Anyone whose kids go to daycare? Is that normal? Is she feeling ill or going through a growth spurt? That's fair, yeah, if she's wanting mommy because she's not feeling good. That could be, very well could be. So today we may end up with one of two different locations, which I will explain momentarily. So my husband is off work today, technically, because his company sent him an email that said, use your PTO or lose it. And so he was like, well, I'll take Tuesday off. And then they scheduled him to interview someone this morning, despite the fact that he has the day off. So, and it's at 9 a.m. The reason I'm sitting out here, even though he has an interview at 9 a.m., is that if the baby wakes up before then, we're gonna go in her room. If the baby doesn't wake up before then, I'll go in our room and take the monitor with me. So I didn't want to go one way or the other, not knowing where I'm gonna end up. So we're here for now. Yeah, that is a mess, right? It's a total mess. The lady at daycare said that she has not seen a bond like ours in a long time. Aw, that's sweet but difficult, right? I mean, it just is, right? It's like, what are you gonna do? I don't even know. It's not very user-friendly. No, it isn't, Nikki. It's not. But we're gonna make it work for us today. She's asleep right now, so we're gonna have quiet. Hey, Priscilla, long time to see. We're gonna have some quiet reading time because the baby's asleep. So let's take advantage of it while we can. Amanda, have a good meeting in 1 minute, and we'll see you later. Uh-oh, she just turned over. Don't wake up. It's way too early. You've only been asleep like 10 minutes. 10 minutes is not gonna cut it. No, girl, don't do it. Don't do it, baby angel. Oh, sweet girl. Okay, she turned over. Hopefully she stays asleep. Oh, you've been catching up on YouTube. That's amazing. I'm glad to hear it. Well, we are on chapter 2 today, which is called Happiness. So we could all use a little happiness. Let's see what kind of happiness Bristol is going to bring to us today. After a long day of energetic crowds, magical charity, and not-so-natural disasters, Bristol was looking forward to a quiet evening alone. Unfortunately, as soon as the Fairy Council returned to the Academy of Magic, she realized that solitude was not in the cards for her. Bristol, can we please talk about this? Lucy asked. You've been giving me the silent treatment since we left the Western Kingdom. In all honesty, Bristol was furious with her, but Lucy's behavior at the Western Dam wasn't the reason for her silence. All Bristol could think about was the strange thoughts that had consumed her during the parade. The longer she dwelled on the experience, the more confusing and upsetting her thoughts became. She hoped a little downtime might help her find an explanation, but Lucy wasn't going to give her any privacy. Come on, Bristol, Lucy moaned. How many times do I have to say I'm sorry? Until I believe you, Bristol said. She hurried up the front steps of the academy and climbed the floating staircase in the entrance hall, but Lucy persisted. Once again, I sincerely apologize for my behavior today. Hey, Joy, Lucy said with a dramatic bow. What I did was childish, reckless, and downright dangerous. But you gotta admit, hey, Jem, we're only one page in, so you didn't miss much. But you gotta admit, it all worked out for us in the end. Worked out? Bristol was appalled by Lucy's choice of words. You can't be serious. Oh yeah, we're just one page in. All that's happened so far is that Bristol's mad and Lucy's trying to apologize. That's literally the only thing that's happened. Of course I am. The crowd loved it, Lucy said. We gave them a spectacle that they'll never forget and a reason to love magic forever. You almost killed us and destroyed an entire city? Yeah, but then I saved you. From a situation that you caused. You know that doesn't make you a hero.
I told you, I never meant to destroy the dam. Honestly, I didn't know what my magic was gonna do. I just wanted to give the Western Kingdom a show. If you had listened to me, none of this would have happened. The notion infuriated Bristol. She paused halfway up the floating steps and turned to Lucy with a nasty scowl. Don't you dare blame this on me, Bristol said. You put thousands of people in danger. You nearly destroyed one of the biggest cities in the world, and you almost ruined the magical community's relationship with mankind. And until that sinks in for you, I'm sorry, Lucy, but you're out of the Fairy Council. I got chills. That hurts. I did not remember that. Lucy was so stunned that her jaw nearly hit the floor. Same girl. Same. What? You can't kick me out of the Fairy Council. Bristol wasn't certain if she could either. Until now, the council had never had a protocol or needed one for bad behavior. Well, I just did, Bristol said with confidence. You are hereby stripped of all council privileges until you're mature enough to take responsibility for your actions. Now, if you'll please excuse me, I have business to attend to. Bristol left Lucy in a frozen state of shock on the floating steps and headed to her office on the second floor. She pushed through the heavy double doors and sighed with relief at the sight of an empty room. The office was a circular and spacious chamber with bookshelves, potion cabinets, and glass furniture. It had floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the Academy's grounds and the sparkling ocean beyond it. Fluffy white clouds drifted through the ceiling, and bubbles emitted from the fireplace and floated through the air. Hey, Naisa. The chamber was filled with unique objects that Bristol and her predecessor, Madame Weatherbury, had collected over the years. On the wall above the fireplace was an enlarged map of magic. The map was covered in thousands of twinkling lights, one for every witch and fairy on the earth. The lights showed where they were located throughout the 4 kingdoms and the 6 territories. In the back of the office, beside Bristol's glass desk, was a very special globe that showed her what the world looked like from space. It allowed Bristol to monitor hurricanes as they blew through the seas and thunderstorms as they swept across the land. But most important of all, Bristol used the globe to keep an eye on the northern lights twinkling above the northern mountains. Thank goodness, she whispered to herself. You're still there. Bristol was relieved to see that the northern lights hadn't moved while she was away. She never told anyone why the lights were so important, but then again, no one ever noticed how frequently she checked on them throughout the day. It was the first thing she did in the morning and the last thing she did at night, and on the days that the Fairy Council traveled, Bristol was always inspecting the globe before and after any trip. The lights meant that Bristol could put her mind at ease at least about one thing. The day had provided her with plenty of concerns, but the day wasn't over yet. You're making a huge mistake, Lucy declared as she burst into the office. Yeah? And why's that? Because losing a member of the band always ends up in disaster, Lucy explained. The same thing happened with the Goblin Tenors. A few years ago, one of the goblins was kicked out of the group for eating one of the fans, but the decision backfired. Without a 4th member, people felt like something was missing from the show, and everyone stopped going to their performances. Or maybe they stopped going to the shows because people were getting eaten at them? Lucy paused for a moment. She had never thought about that before, but she quickly waved it off and went back to her point. Look, I understand. I messed up and I deserve a punishment, but you shouldn't put the Fairy Council at risk just to teach me a lesson, she said. Everyone knows there are 6 of us, and that's what people are going to expect to see. If only 5 of us show up to an event, people will be disappointed. And just like I said at the Western Dam, if we disappoint people, they're going to start to resent us, and soon they'll start hating everyone in the magical community. Lucy, I sincerely doubt the fate of the magical community depends on your attendance. Not at first, but it will, Lucy insisted. Right now, the Fairy Council's the hottest ticket in town, but the hotter the ticket, the quicker it can fizzle out. I've seen it happen so many times that I lost count. When performers get too big too fast, they stop making mistakes. They get comfortable. They stop putting in the work to please people. Corners get cut. Promises get broken, and audiences get taken for granted. And then, wham, the performers think they're unstoppable. The audience ditches them for an act that does meet their expectations. Lucy, this isn't show business. Oh my God, that's amazing, Mary. I love that. Everything is show business. Why can't you see that? Bristol took a deep breath and slid into the chair behind her glass desk. Look, I'm not trying to upset you. I'm just looking out for all of us, Lucy said. The magical community is safe because people love the Fairy Council, and if we want to keep the public on our side, we can't risk upsetting them. Giving people what they want when they want is the best way to ensure our survival. She's right, you know. Once again, Bristol's thoughts came out of nowhere, startling her. You'll never own mankind's approval. You'll have to earn it over and over again until the end of time. Bristol heard the thoughts so clearly that she had to remind herself they were only in her mind. They might treat you like a savior, but in truth you're nothing but a slave. A jester in mankind's court, a clown in their circus. Bristol was disturbed by what the thoughts implied, and she tried to concentrate on where the thoughts were coming from, but each one entered and left her mind so quickly that she couldn't trace them to a logical train of thought. It was like someone else was dropping these ideas in her head and then running away from them. I can tell I'm making you think, Lucy said. I don't consider myself an expert in many fields, but for once I definitely know what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter how much compassion and charity we give to people. They're not going to be satisfied unless we entertain them in the what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter how much compassion and charity we give to people. They're not going to be satisfied unless we entertain them in the process. Sorry, my sister-in-law tried to call me. Can you guys see me? I don't know what that does when she tried to FaceTime me. Now is not the time. All good, okay. She doesn't want to help you. She only wants to help herself. She'll betray you for an ounce of attention. She'd abandon you for a sliver of glory. Bristol tried to ignore the thoughts, but the harder she tried, the louder they seemed. She covered her ears to block them out, but she heard them just as clearly as before. Lucy raised an eyebrow at Bristol and took the gesture personally. Are you seriously covering up your ears right now? She asked. Lucy, please, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Why is it so difficult for you to listen to me? There's a lot on my mind, and this isn't about the West End Dam, is it? What will it take to get you to trust me again? No, look, it has nothing to do with them. What's your problem? Why are you acting like this? Bristol sighed and sank into the chair behind her desk. Part of her wanted to tell someone about the distressing thoughts, but she was still so confused that she didn't know what to say. Besides, it wasn't a great moment to have a heart-to-heart with Lucy. No, she wouldn't understand. No one would. Everyone will think that you're crazy. They'll find a way to use this against you. They've been waiting for a reason to get rid of you. Bristol didn't want to think about such horrible things. She had no control over the thoughts, though. Lucy crossed her arms and studied Bristol like she was a human riddle. Something's troubling you, she said. I can sense it, because trouble is my specialty. I told you I don't want to talk about it, Bristol said. Why not? I tell you about everything. Well, please stop. No, I won't stop. I'm not leaving this office until you tell me what's going on. Fine, then I'll leave. Bristol jumped to her feet and marched to the door, desperate for some alone time. But just as she was about to exit her office, the double doors swung open. Tangerina and Skylene skipped inside, carrying the praise and requests bins. Both bins were overflowing with envelopes. We've got more fan mail, Tangerine announced. Oh my god, you won't believe how much we got this week, Skylene said. The girls were followed by the massive knight with antlers who guarded the border. The knight was dragging two enormous bags that were bulging with even more envelopes. What's Horace doing with the mail? Bristol asked. The border's been pretty safe since the world fell in love with magic, Tangerina said. We needed someone to manage the mail, so we gave him a new job. Bristol, where do you want us to put all the letters? Skylene asked. Some of those are for me? Bristol asked. Tangerina and Skylene looked at her like she was kidding. They're all for you, Tangerina said. Bristol couldn't believe how many people had taken the time to write her. There were hundreds, maybe thousands of letters, and every one of them was addressed to the fairy godmother. None of those people actually care about you. They only want something from you. They always want more and more. They'll never be content. Bristol stood still and stoic as possible so that the others wouldn't notice how much her thoughts were affecting her mood. Just put them by the tea table, she said. I'll look through them later. We'd be happy to sort through your mail if you'd like, Tangerina said. Yeah, sometimes people send gifts, Skylene added. Lucy crossed her arms and scowled at the girls. Do you guys mind? She asked. Bristol and I were in the middle of something before yous interrupted. Actually, I was just leaving, Bristol said. Feel free to sort through the mail. Keep whatever gifts you find. Tangerina and Skylene sat on the glass sofa and excitedly went through the mail, but once again, before Bristol reached the doors, they were pushed open by yet another guest. Emeralda charged into the office at a determined pace, making notes on an emerald clipboard. Bristol, do you have a minute? Emerald asked. I've been going over our schedule for the next week and I have a couple questions for you. I'm trying to iron out the details so that there aren't any surprises. I will not let another entitled Rodel take advantage of us again. Hoodwinked once, shame on them. Hoodwinked twice, shame on me. Honestly, right now is not a good time, Bristol said. Don't worry, this isn't going to take long, Emeralda said and checked her clipboard. Queen Industria would like to name a ship after you while we're in the Eastern Kingdom next week. I told her it depends on what type of ship it is because I don't want anyone using fairy god...
It's not till 10 actually, so don't worry about it.
Cool. I love that for us. I can stay in my seat. I love this chair. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry you had to wake up early for no reason.
I'm gonna nap.
Yeah? Do you want me to... Are you really going in there?
I don't think so.
I mean, she might enjoy it. Are you gonna lay down with her? She'd probably enjoy, she'd probably be happy. Anyway, thank you for letting me know. I told her it depends on what kind of ship it is because I don't want anyone using the fairy godmother term to harpoon whales. Yeah, good foresight, Bristol said, inching closer and closer to the door. I agree, it does depend on the type of ship. Okay, so next, King White wants to name a holiday after you, Emeralda said. They want to commemorate the day that you sent Snow White into seclusion. I don't see a problem with that as long as we get to choose the name of the holiday. Sorry, not Snow White, the Snow Queen. Oh my god, I can't believe I said Snow White. It's because it was King White. Sorry, that's terrible. She did not send Snow White into seclusion. She sent the Snow Queen. That would have been bad. We should also find out what kind of festivities will take place on this day. We don't want people playing pin the wand on the ferry to celebrate you. Yeah, that sounds good too, Bristol said. Is that all? No, not quite, Emeralda said. King Champion the 14th would like to place a statue of you in Chariot Hills Town Square. If you're comfortable with that, I suggest we ask for approval over the sculptor. The last thing we want is something abstract that traumatizes children. Yeah, tell the king I'll get back to him on that, Bristol said, and she reached for the door. Now, if you guys will please excuse me, I really need to get some air. I was confused. I was like, what did she say? Yeah, no, sorry, that was me. That was my mistake. Bristol, Lucy said, are you seriously gonna leave before we're finished talking? Bristol, Tangerina said, someone from the Northern Kingdom sent you the most beautiful bracelet. Oh my god, look, it's gorgeous. Bristol, Skylene said, someone from the Southern Kingdom sent you a dead caterpillar. Oh, wait, the letter said it's supposed to be a butterfly by the time we open it. Man, that's a shame. As Bristol opened the door, a bubbly old woman entered the office. She had violet hair and a purple apron, and she was very glad to see Bristol, but Bristol groaned at another visitor. Oh, good. You're here, the older woman said. You're a difficult person to track down. You're either incredibly busy or you're incredibly good at avoiding me. Hi, Mrs. V, Bristol said. What can I do for you? I was wondering if you made a decision about the request that I sent you, Mrs. V asked. I'm sure I did, Bristol said. Remind me what your request was again. I want to knock down the wall and expand my kitchen, Mrs. V said. We got a lot more mouths to feed now than we used to. One picture may paint 1,000 words, but one oven does not cook for 1,000 people. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, of course you can expand your kitchen, Mrs. V, Bristol said. My apologies for not giving you an answer sooner. The council's been really busy. Bristol squeezed past Mrs. V in the doorway, and Xanthos came running and blocked her escape. Bristol, I just came from the southwest wing of the academy, he panted. Okay, why? What happened? She asked. A spell went horribly wrong during lessons this afternoon, Xanthos said. All the fairies on the 5th floor were shrunk to the size of pixies. And they need me to change them back? Actually, they want your permission to say small. They mentioned the benefits of downsizing, but I didn't understand the appeal. Anyway, they want to get an answer before they get their hopes up, or down, I guess I should say. Bristol groaned and rolled her eyes. Sure, whatever they want. I don't care. Bristol pushed past Xanthos and stomped down the hall. She was used to making decisions and finding solutions, but today she felt like she was drowning in all the requests and questions. It's all too much. There are too many decisions to make. It shouldn't all be on your shoulders. For once, Bristol agreed with these strange thoughts. All she wanted was a few moments alone, and all she needed was a few moments of quiet, and it seemed like that was an impossibility. Your friends will never know what it's like. They would snap from all the pressure. They'd be crushed by the responsibility. The thoughts made Bristol's heart rate rise even more. If she didn't get away from the others, she was afraid she might explode, and unfortunately, as Bristol proceeded down the hall, her friends followed her. Bristol, would you like to send a thank you note for the bracelet? Bristol, King Champion needs an answer by tomorrow. Bristol, small fairies, should they be worried about griffins? Bristol, do you know a fairy with a specialty for renovations? Bristol, do you think we should have a service for the caterpillar? Bristol, are we gonna finish our conversation or what? Everyone, shut up. Bristol's outburst stunned the other fairies, but no one was more surprised than Bristol herself. She was ashamed of raising her voice, but for the first time all day she had finally silenced inside and out of her head. I'm so sorry, she said. I didn't mean to shout. It's just been a long day and I want to be alone. Please, just leave me alone. Bristol raced down the hall before her friends could respond, and the fairies respected her request and did not chase after her. Whoa, what's gotten into her? Tangerine whispered to the others, and Lucy watched Bristol leave with a determined gaze. I have no idea, she whispered back, but I'm gonna find out. Bristol took a long walk to clear her head, and thankfully the unpleasant thoughts did not follow her. She was desperate to find how and why they were happening, but unfortunately peace and quiet didn't provide her with any answers. The thoughts left her in a worse mood each time they occurred, and the more she tried to understand them, the more frustrated she became. She strolled through the fairy territory, hoping that the picturesque grounds would put her in a better mood, and as she walked, Bristol focused on all the positivity around her and reminded herself of all the reasons she had to be happy. Over the past year, the Celeste Weatherbury Memorial Academy of Magic had changed so much that it was almost unrecognizable. The castle had expanded to nearly 10 times its original size to accommodate the fairies who'd moved there. Its shimmering towers stood over 30 stories high, and its golden walls stretched over 10 acres. Every time a new fairy arrived, the castle grew a little bit bigger. The unicorns, the griffins, and the pixies were no longer an endangered species, and they roamed around the property in healthy-sized flocks and herds. The animals helped fertilize the land, allowing even more colorful flowers and vibrant trees to flourish more than before. Everywhere Bristol looked, she saw fairies practicing magic and teaching newcomers how to develop their abilities. The fairies waved and bowed to Bristol as she walked by, and she could feel the gratitude radiating from their hearts. Thanks to her, Madame Weatherbury's small academy had transformed into the fairy territory, and for the first time in history, the magical community had a safe environment where they could peacefully live and thrive. All the fairies knew that Bristol was responsible for their happiness, but despite the joy she created for others, Bristol couldn't seem to muster any for herself. At dusk, Bristol walked down the cliff to the beach below the academy. She sat on the stone bench and watched the sunset. The evening sky was full of pink clouds, and the ocean sparkled as the sun sank into the horizon. It was a breathtaking sight, one of the most spectacular sights that Bristol had seen at the fairy territory, but that did not lift Bristol's spirits. Just be happy, she told herself. Be happy, be happy, be happy. Sadly, no matter how many times she repeated the command, her heart did not listen. Who are you talking to? Oh, sorry, wrong voice.
Who are you talking to?
Bristol looked over her shoulder and saw an 8-year-old girl standing on the bench behind her. The girl had big brown eyes, short, messy hair, and she wore stretchable clothing made from tree sap. Although she had grown a foot in the last year, to Bristol, she would always be the tiny girl that she met at the Bootstrap Correctional Facility. Hey, Pip, Bristol said. Sorry you caught me talking to myself.
Oh, no judgment there, Pip said. Some of my best conversations are with myself. Do you want some company?
More company was the last thing Bristol wanted, but since she wasn't having help with alone time, she'd hoped, Bristol welcomed the distraction from Pip. She patted the stone bench, and her friend took a seat beside her. How are your lessons coming along? Bristol asked.
Good, Pip said. I've completed my improvement, rehabilitation, and manifestation lessons, and tomorrow I start working on imagination.
That's wonderful. Have you been working on your specialty too?
I have. What's this?
Pip removed a ring from her pocket and showed Bristol how she could squeeze her entire arm through it as if her limb was made of clay. Very impressive, Bristol said.
Yesterday, I squeezed my whole body into a pickle jar, she said. Unfortunately, I was stuck in there for 3 hours. Good. Getting into things is much easier than getting out of them, but I guess that's life for you, huh?
I wish I was there to help you. The Fairy Council's been so busy I barely get a moment to myself anymore.
Everyone's talking about your visit to the Western Kingdom. I heard it was a smash.
It was a little too eventful for my taste, but we still helped a lot of people and made them very happy in the process, so I guess that's all that matters.
You don't look very happy, though, Pip noticed. Is something bothering you?
Bristol faced the sunset and sighed. She didn't have the strength to hide it anymore. Happiness is really difficult for me at the moment. she confessed. Don't get me wrong, like, I want to be happy. There's so much to be grateful for, but for some reason, I can't stop having negative thoughts about everything. It feels like I'm stuck in a pickle jar of my own.
Are you sure you're being negative? Pip asked. I know from experience there's a really thin line between negativity and just being realistic. When I was living at Bootstrap, there were days that I would wake up thinking, wow, I'm going to be here forever. And other days I would wake up thinking, dang, I'm going to be here forever.
But they were very different points of view. No, I'm definitely being negative, Bristol said. My thoughts put me in a horrible mood and they make me feel restless and paranoid, and gosh, I wish Madame Weatherbury was still here because she would know exactly how to help me.
If she was here, what would she tell you?
Pip asked. Bristol closed her eyes and imagined Madame Weatherbury sitting beside her. A bittersweet smile came to her face as she remembered her mentor's bright violet eyes and the touch of her soft-gloved hands. Well, she'd probably encouraged me to get to the root of the problem, Bristol said. Honestly, I think just being the fairy godmother is taking a toll on me. I knew it would be a lot of responsibility, but there's an emotional component that I never expected it.
Really?
Pip asked.
How so?
Bristol went quiet as she thought about it. The feeling was difficult to explain to herself, let alone to someone else. Well, the world knows and loves me for a quality that I used to hide and hate in myself, she said. And even though I know I have nothing to fear or be ashamed of, deep down, I'm still carrying that fear and shame with me. Somewhere along the line, I got so busy changing the world that I forgot to change myself with it, and now I think those old feelings are starting to play tricks on me. The fresh insight didn't solve her problems, but it did make Bristol feel a little better. Pip looked across the ocean with a somber gaze as if she knew exactly what Bristol was talking about.
I think I understand, she said. When I was at Bootstrap, I never felt like I belonged there. I mean, it would have been weird if I felt like I belonged there, right? But even though I live in the fairy territory now, the emptiness has stayed with me. It's like since no one taught me how to belong somewhere, I just feel hollow everywhere I go, and I suppose I'm carrying old feelings around too.
Bristol felt sorry for Pip, and she wished she was in a better state of mind to help her. Hey, maybe belonging can be taught, she said. Maybe it's just something we gotta practice. Pip nodded.
Maybe happiness is too.
The girls exchanged half-hearted smiles and watched the rest of the sunset in silence. The tranquility was interrupted shortly thereafter by the sound of whispering.
Look, there she is. Shh, don't make any sudden movements.
Bristol turned around and saw that Tangerina and Skyline were on the beach behind her. It's all right, she said. I'm not gonna yell at you again. Sorry, we know you wanted to be alone, Tangerina said.
It's just, something came in the mail that we really think you should see,
Skyline said. Who's it from? Bristol asked. Tangerina and Skyline glanced at each other with concern. Your family, they said in unison. Suddenly, Bristol's heart sank into the pit of her stomach. She hadn't spoken to anyone from her family in over a year. It must have been important if they were reaching out to her. Bristol jumped up from the bench, and Tangerina handed her a square envelope. Unlike the other envelopes, this one was addressed to Bristol Evergreen instead of the fairy godmother. Her family's home was listed as the return address. Bristol opened the envelope and found the thick white card with a cheerful letter inside. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Deputy Justice Barry Evergreen and Lady Penny Charming. September 16th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon at the Evergreen residence. We look forward to celebrating with you. In lieu of gifts, please donate to the Chariot Hills Home for the Hopeless. Oh my God, Bristol said. What is it? Tangerina asked with bated breath. My brother's getting married.
Oh, thank God,
Skyline said. I was afraid someone died. Bristol didn't know what was more shocking, the idea of Barry being someone's husband or the fact that she was even invited to the wedding.
Congratulations, Pip said. That should make you happy.
Bristol agreed, but despite the wonderful news, she just felt as melancholy as before. Yeah, you're right, Bristol said. It should make me happy. It should. Poor Bristol. She's really going through it, huh? Poor thing. He does a good job describing these feelings, though. It's relatable content, right? You know? What's the matter?
She wake up?
No.
Oh, I thought I didn't know what I thought I heard that.
No, she's out. Out like a little light.
Was she anything this morning?
I would call it medium, but yeah. Medium.
That's fair.
Let's zoom in on this little nuggie and see how she's doing.
A medium mood.
Sweet little angel. Yeah, she had ups and downs, but you know, that's normal, right?
Sure.
All right. Chapter 3 is called A Righteous Introduction. Never good. When Bristol received the invitation to Barry's wedding, the 16th of Champvember seemed like an entire eternity away, but because of the Fairy Council's demanding schedule, the days went by much faster than Bristol wanted them to. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Bristol started to dread the date as it was approaching, as she would a storm. She had daily meetings with the world's most celebrated diplomats and dignitaries, and yet seeing her family again seemed like a terrifying prospect. The last time Bristol saw her brothers Brooks and Barry she had narrowly missed being executed on the courtroom floor. The last time she saw her father, Justice Evergreen, Bristol humiliated him in front of all the justices in the Southern Kingdom. And the last time she saw her mother, Mrs. Evergreen, Bristol was told to leave home and find a better life. Given how dramatic all those farewells had been, Bristol had no idea what to expect or how to prepare. Without a doubt, Justice Evergreen would resent Bristol until the day he died, but his opinion wasn't the one that concerned her. Bristol worried about how her mother and brothers would react to seeing her again, and she wondered whether the last year had changed how they felt about her. Well, the invitation was probably a mistake. Your family doesn't want to see you. They probably hate you and how you've changed the world. They're probably ashamed of the person you've become. The situation was a breeding ground for her disturbing thoughts, and every day Bristol was more and more tempted to skip the wedding altogether. However, she knew nothing would feel worse than missing such an important day in her brother's life. So despite all the fear and anxiety coursing through her, Bristol awoke the morning of the 16th, determined to go. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Bristol departed the fairy territory and floated toward the Southern Kingdom in a large bubble. As she drifted through the sky, Bristol caused quite the scene in the villages and farms below. Civilians ran out of their homes to wave at her, dogs barked and chased after the giant bubble, and even cows and sheep stopped grazing to watch her fly by. Yeah, enjoy that effect while you can. You won't receive the same welcome at home. Strangers love you more than your own family ever will. At 4:30, Chariot Hills appeared in the distance, and Bristol descended into the eastern countryside. At the first sight of the Evergreen house, she jolted, as if nerves had grown legs and kicked her in the stomach. Bristol's modest childhood home looked exactly as it always had. The only difference was all the wedding preparations assembled on the lawn. A dozen rows of white chairs and a white gazebo were arranged under a long white tent. Carriages waited in a lengthy line down the east countryside road, dropping off passengers one at a time. The wedding guests were an eclectic group of aristocrats, commoners, elderly, and young people, and they mingled in an area with high tables and a refreshment stand. The setup was very classy and traditional, but it was much more elaborate than Bristol had predicted. If her father had had his way, Barry would be getting married in a run-down barn. Bristol landed in the center of the lawn and popped the bubble with her crystal wand. The guests were thrilled to see Bristol, and they surrounded her like a pack of hungry wolves. It's the fairy godmother. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm seeing her in real life. Do you think that she'll talk to me? I knew I should have dressed nicer. All the whispering made Bristol feel very awkward, not because of the attention, but because she recognized so many of the faces in the crowd. She spotted family, friends, and distant cousins, former schoolmates, teachers, neighbors that she had grown up with. Most of the guests she'd known since she was a small child, but now they were all gawking at her like she was from another planet. Fairy godmother, can I have your autograph? Fairy godmother, will you kiss my baby? Fairy godmother, can I have a hug? Fairy godmother, can you do some magic for us? The only people who weren't thrilled to see Bristol were a group of Southern Kingdom justices huddled in the corner of the lawn. The men were dressed in their typical black robes, tall black hats, and they watched Bristol like a flock of vultures. Ironically, Bristol almost preferred the justices' hateful scowls to the reactions of the others. Fairy godmother, are you here to give gifts? Fairy godmother, can you turn my dress into a gown? Fairy godmother, can you make my hair grow back? Fairy godmother, can you give me a good singing voice? As soon as her great-great-uncle knelt down to kiss her feet, Bristol looked for a place to hide. There was only one place that she could go. Without another option, Bristol weaved through the excited crowd and hurried into the Evergreen house. Once the door shut behind her, Bristol sighed with relief, but inside the house was even more chaotic than outside. Dozens of bridesmaids and groomsmen frantically raced around the house as if it were on fire. Hey, has anyone seen my bow tie? What are you doing? That's my shoe. Oh my god, I think I lost the rings. How did I end up with 2 corsages? False alarm, don't worry about it. I got the rings. Luckily, the wedding party was so busy applying final touches to their suits and dresses that they didn't notice Bristol standing in the entrance hall. At first, Bristol was so distracted by all the people running amok that she didn't notice anything else. Once the bridesmaids and groomsmen cleared the front of the house, Bristol suddenly gasped. Unlike the outside, the inside of the Evergreen home had changed so much that Bristol thought she was in the wrong place altogether. In the past, Justice Evergreen was so conservative that he denied his family anything he considered extravagant. All the Evergreen's belongings, from their clothing to the wallpaper, were used or hand-me-downs. Servants were completely out of the question, forcing Bristol and Mrs. Evergreen to do all the cooking, cleaning, gardening all by themselves. However, Bristol looked around the house with fresh eyes and realized that this was no longer the case. All the rooms were furnished with brand new furniture that matched. The plates and bowls in the china cabinet were all the same color. The silverware was all the same set. The drapes were made from the same fabric, and all the walls had been recently painted the same shade of a pearly gray. But most surprising of all was Bristol found maids picking up after the wedding party and a cook preparing food in the kitchen. It was so shocking that Bristol felt like she'd wandered into another dimension, and she wondered if all the rooms had been redecorated. Before she could stop herself, Bristol curiously took hold of herself and climbed the stairs to her old bedroom at the very top of the house. She slowly opened the bedroom door and stepped inside. The bed was made with the same sheets, and the nightstand held the same candle. The mirror and the dresser stood in the same corner, and even the loose floorboard hadn't been touched since she left. The bedroom looked exactly as she remembered it, but strangely it felt completely different. Bristol couldn't believe how small and cold her bedroom was, and yet the same size and temperature never stood out in her memory. Perhaps the room seemed smaller because she had grown so much as a person. Perhaps the room felt colder because she now knew the warmth of a true home. Tears welled in Bristol's eyes as she recalled what her life used to be like in the Evergreen house. She remembered all the nights she cried herself to sleep and the days she'd lived in fear and all the nightmares in between. She remembered the angst of wanting a better life and the pain of unanswered prayers and the suffocating feeling of being stuck. But Bristol didn't remember the emotions, just felt them too. All the fear and sadness surfaced from deep within her, stronger than ever before. You'll never get rid of her, no matter where you go or what you do. Part of you will always be that scared, suppressed little girl. She'll always be inside of you. Always. Bristol couldn't understand why she was feeling and thinking such things. Her life had changed so significantly that she was practically a different person. So why was she carrying the same heartache from her past? She looked in the mirror for reassurance, but unfortunately, her reflection only made her feel worse. There was no difference between the sorrowful expression that Bristol wore today and the sorrowful expression that she had on her face most of her childhood. Perhaps she hadn't changed as much as she thought. You're back, a voice said behind her. Oh, sorry, wrong voice. I hate when I do that. You're back, a voice said behind her, and Bristol quickly wiped away her tears and glanced over her shoulder. A beautiful middle-aged woman in a shiny teal dress was standing in the doorway. The woman was ecstatic to see Bristol and ran into the bedroom to embrace her. Mother? Bristol gasped. Is that you? Mrs. Evergreen looked so different that Bristol didn't even recognize her at first. Her hair was no longer styled in a conservative bun on top of her head, but flowed freely to her waist. The dark circles under her eyes had vanished, and for the first time in Bristol's memory, Mrs. Evergreen looked rested. The teal dress also brought out the green in her mother's eyes, which Bristol had never noticed until now. Oh, my darling girl, Mrs. Evergreen said, and she hugged Bristol a little tighter. How happy I am to see you. Mother, you look amazing, Bristol said. What happened? Well, I hope you're not too surprised, Mrs. Evergreen teased her. Of course not. No, I didn't mean it like that, Bristol said. Forgive me, everything's just so different. I wasn't expecting the house to look like this. I wasn't expecting you to look like this. There's new furniture, new china, new drapes. You even have servants? How is Father allowing all of this? I finally gave him an ultimatum, Mrs. Evergreen said. If he didn't hire maids and a cook to help me around the house, I would leave him, and I reminded him that if I left, he'd have no choice but to hire maids and a cook anyway. You should have seen his face. The idea of losing me must have really scared him because he hasn't denied me anything since. Bristol was incredibly proud of her mother, but the thoughts were quickly quashed and replaced with a feeling of shame. You should have helped your mother. If it weren't for her, you'd still be at the Bootstrap Correctional Facility. You abandoned her to help strangers. You failed her, and she had to do this all on her own. What's wrong, Bristol? Mrs. Evergreen asked. Why do you look so sad? Oh, it's nothing, she said. Mrs. Evergreen gave Bristol a stern look. It didn't matter how much time had passed. Mrs. Evergreen always knew when Bristol was lying to her. I just feel guilty, Bristol confessed. After you signed my permission slip to attend Madam Weatherbury School, I always told myself I would come back and save you from this place, but I never did. I've been helping strangers all over the world, but I never helped you. Mrs. Evergreen seemed both heartbroken and amused by Bristol's confession. She lovingly placed a hand on her daughter's face and looked deep into her eyes. Bristol, you're not responsible for anyone's happiness except your own, including mine. Bristol, Mrs. Evergreen said, the last time we spoke, I told you to leave this horrible place and never return because that's what it was. A horrible place. I didn't think it was possible to change it, but then something amazing happened. Someone came along who showed me that nothing was impossible. Who? Bristol asked. Well, you, sweetheart, Mrs. Evergreen said. I thought if my daughter can change the whole world, then I can make changes too. Without your example, I would have never had the courage to stand up to your father. So in many ways, you really did save me. And not just me, you've inspired thousands of other people to improve their lives too. I hope you know how special that is. Bristol knew how significant her mother's words were, but in her current state of mind, she couldn't let the feeling sink in. She shrugged it off like Mrs. Evergreen was giving her a small compliment. It can be a little overwhelming at times, she said. Yeah, I bet, Mrs. Evergreen said. I've seen how those crowds react to you and your friends. You mean you came to one of our events? Bristol asked in disbelief. Oh, I haven't missed a single event in the entire Southern Kingdom, Mrs. Evergreen said with a proud smile. I was there when you rebuilt the orphanage that burnt down. I was there when you gave the new roof to the hospital for the wounded soldiers. I was there just last week when King Champion presented you with a statue in the Chariot Hills Town Square. I actually brought a big poster with your name on it to that one. There were so many people there, I imagine it was hard to see me, though. Oh, I wish I had known you were there, Bristol said. I would have loved to see you. All that matters is that you're here now, Mrs. Evergreen said. It's a miracle that you got the wedding invitation. I was afraid that big night would lose it. Bristol was certain that she had misheard her. Wait a second. Are you saying you delivered it yourself? Of course. It was important, Mrs. Evergreen said. I marched right up to the knight and I told him, I don't care how scary you look. If this letter doesn't get to my daughter, I'll be the scariest thing you've ever met. He didn't seem very frightened, but it must have worked. Bristol was speechless. Even her thoughts went silent. Clearly, Mrs. Evergreen had nothing but unconditional love and support for her daughter, and Bristol's mind couldn't spin that into anything negative. Mother, where are you? I need your help. Mrs. Evergreen rolled her eyes. I'm up in your sister's room, she called out. Was that Barry? Bristol asked. He sounds more stressed out than usual. Your brother's been such a nervous wreck since he proposed, Mrs. Evergreen said. You'd think that he was the first person in the history of the world to ever get married. They heard frantic footsteps climb the stairs and dash down the hall, and then Barry burst into the room at the speed of light. He was dressed in a sharp black suit and carried a handful of buttons that were supposed to be on his suit jacket. Barry was in such a panic that it took him a moment to even notice his sister, standing beside his mother. Mother, it happened again. I didn't even realize that I was playing with the buttons until I had ripped them all off. Oh, hello, Bristol. I'm so sorry, Mother. Please don't be angry with me. I'm so nervous. I felt like there were bats in my stomach. Do you think you can fix these before... Bristol? In Barry's panicked rant, it turned quickly into a fit of joyous laughter. He gave Bristol an enormous hug and spun her around the room. Bristol! 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 Barry cheered. It's so wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to see you too, Barry. I can't believe you're here. Gosh, you've been so busy. What you've been up to is so remarkable. I mean, it means so much to me that you came here today. I wouldn't have missed your wedding for the world, Bristol said. It's funny, of all the people to tell me that today, you're the first person who I believe actually means it, Barry said. I've been following all your accomplishments in the newspaper. Penny helped me start a scrapbook with all the clippings. I said, oh, that's her name, by the way, Penny. I suppose you already knew that from the invitation, though. Yeah, I can't wait to meet her, Bristol said. What's she like, and where did you guys meet? An enormous smile grew across Barry's face as he thought about his future wife. Bristol had never seen her brother look so happy. Actually, she had never seen anyone look so happy. Well, honestly, she's the most incredible person I've ever met, Barry said. We met 11 months ago at the Chariot Hills Library. Thank you so much for changing that law, by the way. We never would have met if women were still banned from the library. Anyway, we were in the same aisle of researching locksmiths, a turnkey trade, at the exact same time. Turns out she has a fascination with old locks and keys just like I do. Naturally, I told her to take the book, but she insisted I check it out first. We kept going back and forth on who should take it, and finally we just agreed to share the book, and well, the rest is history. Barry, if you want a successful marriage, I suggest you learn how to sew for yourself, Mrs. Evergreen scolded. It's going to take me an hour to put all these buttons back on your suit, and the ceremony is about to start. Oh, actually, I can help with that, Bristol said, and with a quick flick of her wand, all the buttons flew out of Barry's hand and reattached themselves to his jacket. Bristol also reached into the pocket of her pantsuit and pulled a small gift out topped with a golden bow. Here, Bristol said as she handed it to him. "I made you an enchanted sewing kit for a wedding present. Just put the thread through the eye of the needle and it'll do the rest. I was going to save it for later, but you should take it now in case you need to fix your jacket again." Barry was so touched by the gift. "Oh, you know me so well," he said. "Thank you." The tender moment was cut short by another pair of footsteps stomping up the stairs, and Bristol recognized them instantly. It was the sound she had feared the most as a child. Justice Evergreen charged into the bedroom with heavy breath and a tense brow. "The ceremony is supposed to start in 5 minutes, and not a single bridesmaid or groomsman is fully dressed." Bristol's father was angry, but seeing her infuriated the justice. His whole body went tense, and his face turned bright red. The justice refused to look at Bristol, and instead he pointed at her and sent a furious scowl toward his wife. "What is it doing here?" he asked. "I invited her," Mrs. Evergreen said as if it were obvious. Justice Evergreen closed his eyes and tried to suppress his anger. Bristol could tell this was a new exercise for her father because the justice was not very good at it. "Lynn, we agreed that we wouldn't—" "We didn't agree on anything," Mrs. Evergreen said, raising her voice to match his. "You told me you didn't want her here, and I listened, but I never gave you any impression that she wasn't invited. You can pretend that she doesn't exist all you want, but Bristol is still my daughter, and she has every right to be at her brother's wedding." Bristol was pleasantly surprised at how effortlessly her mother stood up to her father. Mrs. Evergreen debated her husband just like it was a fun new hobby. The justice turned so red that he was almost purple. "I will allow it to stay for the wedding, but I will not allow it in my house," he sneered. And Mrs. Evergreen raised a finger and stepped toward the justice, but Bristol stopped her mother before the argument went any further. She didn't want anything to spoil Barry's special day, especially a disagreement about her. "It's all right, Mother," she said calmly. "I'm more than happy to wait outside until the wedding begins." Bristol headed out of the bedroom and paused in the doorway. "Besides," she whispered to her father, "from the looks of things, this doesn't appear to be your house anymore anyway." That's a sick burn. To a guy like that, that's a sick burn. Bristol left the Evergreen house and joined the wedding guests outside. She was hoping to find a place to hide before anyone saw her return, but the guests were gathered around the front door waiting for her. The number of attendees had doubled since she arrived, and clearly all the newcomers had been notified of her attendance. "Fairy Godmother, can you give me a bigger house? Fairy Godmother, can you cure my indigestion? Fairy Godmother, do you think you could make my nose a little smaller? Fairy Godmother, can you please teach my children some manners?" The guests crept closer and closer, and Bristol dodged all the hands reaching out to touch her. She started to worry that she'd be stuck on the Evergreens' porch all day, but she was rescued by a belligerent voice coming from afar. "Oh, piss off, all of you!" Everyone on the front lawn turned toward a disheveled man at the refreshment stand. His shaggy hair was desperately in need of a barber, and his tight brown suit was desperately in need of a tailor. The man feverishly smoked a wooden pipe, and from the way that he was leaning on the refreshment counter, it was obvious that he had enjoyed one too many refreshments. "For the love of champion, it's just Bristol! A few magic tricks doesn't make her a saint." "Brooks?" Bristol gasped. Unlike their mother, the last year had not been kind to her oldest brother. His muscular build had melted down into a belly, and his handsome face was puffy and covered in stubble. His pompous attitude had been replaced with a noticeable chip on his shoulder, and all the wedding guests slowly backed away from Bristol as she zigzagged through the crowd to her brother's side. "Thanks for that," she told him. "Hi, Brooks. You look so... Well, I mean, it's nice to..." "Hi, Brooks." "Don't," he said. "Don't what?" she asked. "Don't bother wasting that fairy crap on me. I'm not like those idiots. A little kindness and a few sparkles aren't going to turn me into one of your degenerate sycophants. I don't care who you are or what you've become. You'll always be my annoying know-it-all little sister, so don't come over here expecting me to eat out of the palm of your hand." Bristol suddenly threw her arms around her brother and gave him a huge hug. "You have no idea how nice it is to hear someone say that," she said. And Brooks was surprised by her reaction. "Well, I mean it," he said. "Now get off me before your magic rubs off on me. I don't want those bootlickers asking me for favors." Bristol released him from her embrace, and Brooks ordered another drink from the bartender behind the counter. It wasn't pouring as fast as Brooks liked, so Brooks yanked the bottle away from him and poured the drink himself. Bristol studied her brother with a long and pitying gaze. She tried to fix a strand of his messy hair, but Brooks slapped her hand away. "Okay, so how are you?" Bristol asked him, although the answer was pretty obvious. "Oh, I'm just dandy." Brooks said. Things couldn't be better. Let's see. Well, okay. My little brother's getting married to one of the most eligible bachelorettes in the whole Southern Kingdom. My little sister is the most influential person that has ever lived, and I'm working in a cobbler's shop. So, yeah, no complaints there. Life's just going great. You're working in a shoe store? Bristol asked, quickly adjusting her tone. I mean, you're working in a shoe store. How exciting. Why aren't you a deputy justice anymore? Justice Oldgrady got me disbarred, Brooks said. What? When? After your trial last year, he reported my negligent behavior to the high justices. They took away my title, my robes, and banished me from the legal system for life. Oh my God, Brooks, I am so sorry to hear that, Bristol said. If there's anything I can do to make it up with you, please don't hesitate. Don't. It wasn't your fault, Brooks said. Everyone knows Oldgrade had me sacked to get revenge on Father. Sometimes I think it was all worth it just to see the look on Oldgrade's disgusting face when Father burst into his courtroom and saved your life. I bet Father regrets that now, Bristol said. Still, I'm sorry that you're the one who had to pay the price for it. Yeah, it's probably for the best, he said. Let's be honest, I was a lousy deputy justice anyway. I never cared about defending or prosecuting criminals. I only went to the University of Law to please Father. Now I'm finally free to follow my passion. And what's that? Bristol asked. She wasn't trying to be rude. She was genuinely curious because she didn't know the answer. When they were growing up, the only subjects Brooks was interested in was himself. And when he opened his mouth to respond, he didn't know the answer either. Well, what I meant was I'm finally free to find a passion, he restated. Bristol gave her brother a sympathetic pat on his shoulder. I know you're going to land on your feet, Brooks, she said. You think too highly of yourself to stay in this kind of a funk forever. Yeah, I do. Suddenly, she felt a strange sensation. It was like she was being watched, but the exact opposite. For the first time since she had arrived, the wedding guests were no longer gawking at her. Their attention was drawn to something moving in the distance. A cavalcade of armed guards escorted an elegant carriage down the road. The guards blew horns to announce their arrival and carried flags with the crest of the royal King Champion the 14th. Is the king coming to Barry's wedding? Bristol asked. Yeah, I imagine so, Brooks hiccuped. Barry's marrying his niece, after all. Bristol was stunned. Really? I had no idea. Yeah, as if my younger brother getting married before me wasn't humiliating enough, he also managed to bag himself a royal. From this day forward, Barry will be known as Lord Evergreen, and I'll be expected to bow and call him Sir whenever I'm in his presence. The thought was too much for Brooks to bear, and he reached behind the refreshment counter and started chugging at the closest bottle. The royal carriage parked on the front lawn, and the wedding guests surrounded it. The guards rolled out a red carpet for the royal passengers and then stood at attention while they emerged. A middle-aged man was the first passenger to step out of the carriage. He wore a velvet red cape with fur trim and a large feathered hat. The man had a black beard and was a little too dark to pass as a natural color, and he had a cocky grin that never faded from his face. He scoffed at the first sight of the Evergreen residence like he was far too important to be there. Who's that? Bristol asked her brother. Yeah. That's Prince Maximus Champion, the future King Champion, the 15th, Brooks said. I wonder why I've never met him before, Bristol said. Probably because he hates your guts, Brooks said. Prince Maximus is extremely old-fashioned and detests how you changed the Constitution. I heard rumors that he begged his father to reinstate the old laws, but the king wouldn't hear a word of it. Apparently, ever since you defeated the Snow Queen, you're the only person the King Champion takes advice from. Prince Maximus was followed by 5 young men, all between the ages of 12 and 20. The young men looked like younger versions of the prince and wore matching capes and feathered hats. They scanned the Evergreen property with noticeably blank expressions in their eyes, as if none of them had ever had a deep thought. The wedding guests bowed to each of the royals and climbed out of the carriage. Bristol was hoping that King Champion the 14th would emerge next, but the sovereign never appeared. I'm assuming those are Maximus's sons, Bristol said. Their names are Triumph, Conquer, Victory, Score, and Marvel, Brooks listed. But don't ask me which one's who. I doubt their father can even tell them apart. Why isn't the king with them? Bristol asked. I heard rumors his health's declining, Brooks said. How odd, Bristol said. I just saw King Champion. He presented me with a statue in the Chariot Hills Town Square. He seemed perfectly healthy then. Yeah, well, you know the elderly. They reach a certain age, stop taking care of themselves, Brooks said, and then he chugged the second bottle from behind the counter. Maximus is probably going to be sitting on the throne sooner than we expect. The idea of losing King Champion the 14th plagued Bristol with an entirely new batch of worries. Last year, she persuaded him and the other sovereigns to legalize magic in exchange for protection from the Snow Queen, but what if Prince Maximus wasn't as receptive as his father? How could Bristol protect magic, women, and the talking creatures from Maximus's old-fashioned values? And if she couldn't, would King Warsworth, Queen Industria, and King White follow his example? You better hope King Champion the 14th sticks around. Once Prince Maximus is crowned, he'll restore all the old laws. He'll turn his people against you. He'll convince the other sovereigns to do the same. Everything you've worked for will be lost. Nysa, don't even go there. You cannot tell me that you want your child to be named Marvel. Marvel? Nysa, I will not let you do that to a child. Triumph? We're not doing that. Score is bad, but they're all bad. Conquer? His name is Conquer. Brutal. For weeks, Bristol had worried about losing mankind's approval, and now her concerns felt more legitimate than ever before. Oh, the laws will change. Women will lose their rights. Talking creatures will lose their homes. Magic will be criminalized, and you and your friends will be hated once again. The princes worked their way through the crowd of adoring guests, and Prince Maximus eventually made it to the group of justices and greeted them with friendly embraces. Bristol couldn't hear what they were discussing, but it was obvious that the justices were warning Prince Maximus of her attendance. All the men scowled at Bristol, but Prince Maximus's scowl was the nastiest of all. Oh, he despises you, possibly more than the justices do. He'll never keep your amendments to the Constitution. He wants to eliminate you completely. You've made yourself a very powerful enemy. Ooh. I was just checking to see how, okay, so there's still like half the chapter left. It's a pretty long chapter, so we're not gonna be able to finish that one today, but we will finish that and the next one tomorrow. You know, we had a very nice, quiet book club, which can't complain about that. That's it for today. I think it was supposed to rain all day today, but it looks like maybe it's not gonna, so maybe we'll actually get to go outside today. Who knows? And I hope you all had a very nice time, and I will see you all tomorrow.